anytime, any day. Why not right now? Stop looking up to your boss and start being your own boss. Don't work for paychecks. Work for dreams with no regrets. This is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. If you have the passion, we'll create the blueprint. Now, your host. You know him from his 7 tips to build the business you always wanted, and now you're about to hear a lot more. Jack H.M. Wong.
Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. I'm your host, Jack Wong. So I'm so happy that I've got a very successful entrepreneur and a real estate investor, and his name is Abhi Golhar. He's all the way from the United States. I do not want to give you an introduction of the best is let him share with you his bio. So Abhi, thank you for coming to my show, and I truly appreciate your presence today.
Hey, you got it, Jack. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Yes. So question very simple is, who are you? What do you do? What was your background?
Yeah, I was reading over your profile as well, and I think you and I are very, very similar. I appreciate, one, that you put out such an awesome podcast. I've been listening to it, and I think there are many people around the world, and especially entrepreneurs in Singapore, that can definitely use the inspiration. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and keep up the good work.
You're welcome.
I think it's interesting when you have somebody that's been in corporate Singapore for over 15 years, and then you wake up in the morning and you realize that, hey, geez, your career is dead. And even though you want to succeed and you have this good mindset, there's still people that are saying, oh, you can't do this, or you're too old, or they're just negative. And you and I were kind of in this exact same position. When I first started, I was in high school. I was roughly, maybe 15, 16 years old. And I had this longing. I said, okay, I want to have some type of business. And I did very well academically. I did well during school and also during college. But I always had this nagging part of me that said, I really have to pay attention to the business side of things. I really want to do something. So in high school, do you remember when computers were really big? You had the big computer towers, and you could remove all you had the floppy disk, the CD-ROM drives, the big hard drives, and the big batteries. Yeah.
Yep.
So I went around in my neighborhood where I lived, and I started repairing computers. And I thought to myself, well, gee whiz, how cool is that? I pretty much beat Geek Squad by 25 years or something like that. So essentially, I was running around my neighborhood, and I used to knock on doors, and I used to send out flyers to get business. As a result of that, I had clients that said, well, hey, I have software problems, I have hardware problems, can you help me? And I said, absolutely. And I was charging, I think, $25 an hour when I was in high school, and I was doing pretty well in high school. And I thought, this would be really cool to keep going and keep doing. I found out also when doing this business that I was really good with my hands. I like technology. I like software. I like hardware. So I attended the University of Michigan from 2002 and 2006. I finished my degree in electrical engineering with a specialization in semiconductor theory and nanotechnology. Afterwards, I graduated. I had a bunch of job offers, and I didn't take any of them. I just said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. And there were really good job offers, everything in the West Coast from all the big names that you can imagine, even from a couple of consulting companies, and I just didn't want to do it. And that could have been maybe my personality. That could have been I saw something in my future, and I didn't really know what it was at the time, and I wanted to take a chance on myself. And even though I still invest in business today, I also invest in real estate. But I'll tell you something, I'm really passionate about startups. I love investing in businesses, turning businesses around, and getting more into the mindset of why we should even start a business to begin with. And so, listening to podcasts like yours and just seeing your success and your growth is super, super cool. So
yeah, you know what, Abhi, what struck me about your background, your history, is that you and I believe that we have something very in common, because I did very well in school. I have actually got 4 degrees, but I didn't have that kind of mindset like you. What happened was that I came out, I got 5 offers. I still remember in 1993, I've got 5 offers. And what happened was that I decided to really take on one of the offers, and I started my journey as an employee. So I didn't have that gut of I didn't have that kind of mindset that I want to start a business right from the start after I graduated from school. So that's why I only started my business in 2011. So that was my history. So if I were to make that decision, like what you did back in 1993, I guess that my life would be very different from now.
I completely agree. I think awareness is a really big key with all of this, right? Like we have to be aware of how we're feeling and what we're doing. And sometimes people just aren't ready right now, whether it's emotionally, whether it's having the fortitude, whether it's just getting up in the morning and saying, I can do this. And it takes time. You can't just tomorrow say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and make this happen if you don't have the mindset, right? Because that's such a critical component. If you're thinking so negatively, this entrepreneurship world, starting a business just won't work for you because you're already starting from a negative place. You're not starting from the right place. So being aware of how you're feeling, what you're doing, who your friends are, what mom and dad are telling you, what your colleagues are telling you, all of this stuff is really important.
And you know what? The other funny thing is that I guess, like, I always believe like that my own perception. I mean, by all means, it's just my own experience. It's like in Singapore, in Asia, the culture is that the parents will tell you, hey, you know what? After graduating from school, you better get a good job. And the word job is stuck in your mind. And then get a good job, get good pay, and then invest in the stock market long term, and then retire and enjoy the rest of your life. So there's always that story going on in Asia. So unfortunately, in my era, a lot of people were not aware of the fact that, well, they actually can have another choice. So it's a very logical path for most of us, if not all, to finish our degree, go to get a job. This is how I was grown. This is how I grew up in the old days. So I think the culture right now has been open so much that, well, there are many more and more people like you, like they graduate from school, they decided, like lawyers, typically after they graduate, they will go to a law firm to practice, but there are lawyers who decide to give up the law career and start a restaurant. It's like lawyers starting a restaurant. It's like you can't see the link, but they just decide to do that. Yes, we begin to see this kind of cultural shift or mindset shift. It is a good sign. But we still need a lot more success story like this to convince people that at the end of the day, not having a job can be a good thing. It's like, I'm so worried that you don't have a job. Oh, so poor thing, you don't have a job. So go and get a job now. This is the environment we're living in, unfortunately. So to you, I found it very cool. Like before our show, I actually found out from you that you had never had any experience on a job. It's like, huh? Wow, that's really cool, because a lot of my guests actually are like me, having a job first and then transition to an employee. So in your world, you have never thought about having a job, and you were so fascinated with business right away. So to you, you have already gotten, I believe, a very good advantage of becoming an entrepreneur, let alone being a successful entrepreneur later on. So you have a very good head start. So do you experience any challenges, like when you decide to just go straight to become an entrepreneur? Do you have any challenges, like your friends, your family members, or people around you give you some unsupportive comments or remarks? Do you have that kind of experience?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the time, man. All the freaking time. It was so much where I started to not believe in myself.
Oh boy. That's not cool.
Yeah, man. Like it was crazy. And I mean, so here's the thing. For those people that are negative around you and they're telling you negative things, it's not that they don't want you to be successful. You know what it really is? It's the fact that it's the fact that they are uncomfortable with where you are, and they love you so much that they just want the best for you. And because you are outside their circle of comfort, they'll say, hey, you know what? Don't do that. Come back into the circle of comfort, because what's going to happen otherwise? And that's a really big challenge, you know? I mean, when I was going back and forth between Ann Arbor and Detroit, during that time, I had a really small real estate business, and I encountered so many problems. You know, I was in college. I was taking 17 credits at Michigan, my electrical engineering degree. I was attending classes at the business school that I wasn't enrolled in, and at the same time, I was going to Detroit to look at my rental properties, and I had no idea what I was doing. My brother was like, "What are you doing with your life?" Mom and Dad had no idea. All my friends were making fun of me. I had nobody to talk to. My mentors were laughing at me, and I found out later they weren't the right mentors to have.
Okay.
I felt like the world just hated me, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? And then I realized, and it took me years after that to realize it's not that I was doing something incorrectly. It's the other's perspective on what I was doing was incorrect. And
Right.
if I let myself lead my life based on what other people think and say and do, then I'm not really giving myself the best shot.
That sounds interesting. So how did you come to that point of decision? Like, okay, enough is enough. Okay, thank you for sharing all this supportive belief, but it's not very useful to me. How do you come to the point of decision that you can cope with what you're doing and you keep on doing what you're doing? In other words, like, how do you keep your strong belief going?
I would say two things. It starts with what you tell yourself in the morning.
Right.
Every morning I wake up, I go for a run, I meditate, I write in my journal, and it is totally empowering for me.
Right.
That is my golden time. I'll wake up generally between 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning, and I hit it. You know, I like to work out. I like to talk to myself, and I say awesome things like, "Holy cow, I'm so excited to be alive. It's amazing. I can't wait to help somebody else. I'm taking advantage of opportunity, but I'm also creating impact." And I think the other part of it is recognizing what's actually happening. So if you're growing a garden, let's say you have tomatoes in your garden, you have mint, you have mangoes in your garden, and you realize that they're weeds. You know, some weeds are in your garden, they're starting to grow. You can be one of two people. You can be the person that ignores the weeds and says, oh, they're not really going to be super harmful, but I'm going to take care of my garden really well, but I'll ignore the weeds. The second type of person will say, nope, I'm going to kill the weeds. I'm going to take the weeds up from the root and throw them away because I know the type of havoc and chaos they can cause to my garden. Very similarly, your mindset is your garden. Your mind is your garden. The more negativity that you have in your garden, it's recognition that the negativity is there, and then start to pull that negativity out. The way that I did that was have honest conversations with my friends, and I said, hey, listen, this is where I'm going. And quite frankly, I don't care what you think. Right? Like, this is just real talk, super honest, right?
Sure.
I don't give a shit. Like, what you think. What I want you to do is to keep your opinions about what I'm doing to yourself, because I didn't ask you for your opinion. If you have something positive to say, then let's talk about it. If you don't have anything positive to say, then you can talk amongst talk amongst yourselves. You can talk behind my back. I don't care. I don't need to hear it because I'm gunning for something awesome.
That's right.
And the moment that people realize that, they're like, oh wow, he's actually serious about doing his stuff. Then they'll lay off. But you have to get serious about you first. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to understand that you're worth it.
This concept of self-worth, which is very important. So how do you place a value to yourself? How much do you think you are worth? So this is a very, very profound question. It is important, I know. And the fact is that a lot of people actually don't see them worthy. That's the problem. It's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I will always be a failure because there's so many people who are successful than me. I will never make it. It's like the world has given us all sorts of conditions, all sorts of opportunity to condition ourselves that way. So it's pretty important for us. Okay, thank you for sharing with all these ideas, but I don't need them. So you said very nicely, and the saying to listeners is, do not care what other people say about you. The first person who is the most important person in your life is yourself. So what sorts of things you are going to tell yourself? Are they useful? Are they resourceful? Are they something that is supporting what you do, or are they not? So to me, it is very, very important. It's like even we learn how we learn like the sales, the marketing, or other kind of business skills. Like beside all these skills, which are also important, the mindset is very critical piece of this name of the game, of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes,
I'm totally with you.
Completely agreed.
I'm totally with you. So what do you see about people, like if there's a person coming to you and ask Abhi, I'm about to start a business. What would be the 3 things that I have to do in order to be successful? So what would you say to this person?
I would say watch what you're putting in your mind, learn, pay attention to the right podcasts like yours,
Thank you.
really get out there and say, hey, what can I do to learn and network? And that's more so for your mindset. The second thing is network. Go to local meetup groups, see who else is in the community, learn from these people, find a mentor. I'm sure there's somebody in Singapore that is super successful that somebody wants to be like. If you're listening and you think to yourself, hey, I want to be a successful entrepreneur one day or a small business owner, and my favorite business that I want to run is a restaurant. Well, great. Go to a restaurant that's your favorite restaurant and speak with the owner, speak with the chef, learn from the get-go, learn from the small kind of beginning steps. And then eventually you'll have created enough value for that mentor to potentially want to partner with you on your own restaurant. So finding a mentor is really crucial because they can help you avoid the mistakes that they've made. And now all of a sudden you have an experienced team member on your advisory board, if you will.
Yep.
That will really help me out or help you out. The third most important thing is test your idea. There are too many startups right now that are saying, hey, I'm not going to get customers, but I'm going to go ahead and get a whole lot of funding. That doesn't work anymore. You have to have customers. You have to prove to an angel. You have to prove to an investor that not only do you have recurring revenue, but you have a growing user base. You have a software. You have a service. You have a product that's in demand. And that's what I look for when I invest in businesses and startups. I do that here stateside all the time. And I'm always looking at partnering with folks, with entrepreneurs that have the experience. They have an experienced team. They have a proven product or service, and they have current cash flow. They're making money for themselves. That's really, really important. I'd like to point out the fact that Singapore, I think the BCA, the Building and Construction Authority in Singapore.
Building Control Authority. BCA.
Yep, exactly. I think in late 2017, they've started to have new initiatives under their Green Building Master Plan, essentially to emphasize healthier work environments. And the one thing that I love about Singapore is how clean the environment is. And I think I visited when I was like super small. I was in the country maybe when I was 4 or 5 or 6. And I was chewing gum, and I got in trouble for I wasn't allowed to.
Well, the truth is that because he got famous because of an American called Michael Fay, who did not Michael Fay, but Michael Fay got famous about how Americans see Singapore is because of Michael Fay incidents of vandalism. The thing about chewing gum is becoming the so-called the subsidiary story of Michael Fay's incident, whereby why is Singapore so strict? Like even chewing gum is not allowed to be consumed. Well, the truth is that, just to clarify, chewing gum the law doesn't prohibit someone from consuming chewing gum in Singapore. The law only say that you are not allowed to import chewing gums into Singapore. So the truth is that if you are able to bring it to Singapore, and this is the fact of the matter, there are people who do that, and you can consume whichever, whenever you like. That is the chewing gum story.
Interesting. Yeah, yes. I had no idea. But I've been reading a lot about what's been happening in Singapore lately. Yeah. And I think this green expertise, there's certainly a lot of opportunity there. There's a new target on the number of green building professionals that the BCA hopes to train. And that's roughly about 25,000 green building professionals by the year 2025. And there's opportunity right there. For example, that's somebody I'm sure can jump in and build a business around that and help these buildings become more green, or at least consult to have these buildings become more green. So I think the 3 things, pay attention to these 3 things. Find yourself a mentor, understand what's happening inside your brain, and be on the lookout for opportunity. And once you find the opportunity, test it.
Yeah.
Make sure that you have a little bit of revenue. It doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars or anything like that. It can be small. If you have 1 or 2 or 3 paying clients or customers, that's great. That's proof of concept. And then you can start to build and grow and scale. Don't pour all of your life savings into a piece of software that you hope is going to win over an industry one day. Go to the industry. If you're targeting plumbers, are you targeting restaurateurs? Are you targeting other entrepreneurs? Ask them what they really need, and then build a software that solves their pain. Because ultimately people want a couple of things, right? They want you to help them save time. They want you to help them save money, or they want you to help them make money. The more of these three things you can check off, if you can help them check off saving time, great. And you can help them save money, check, awesome. And you can also help them make money. Oh, man, now you're on fire. Now you have something that can actually work out really well. So there's plenty of opportunity there. And, I'm Indian, and I visit India once or twice a year. I'm going to visit Singapore at some point in time so that you and I can shake hands and meet each other in person. Yep. But I think there's tremendous intellectual capacity and horsepower out of Asia. We just have to make sure that we're aware of what we're thinking. And the same challenges that we have in the States and the same challenges that you see in Singapore, Jack, are the same challenges that I see in India and the entrepreneurs that I connect with there. It's the mindset. Oh, I'm told I should only do this. My mom and dad are saying that I should, I could follow this specific path. But that's because we aren't used to experiencing something outside of our comfort zone.
That's right. Perfect. And what I'm impressed upon you, Abhi, is that the subsidiary thing about your second point, that is networking, is what you are very good at. Because I noticed in this conversation, you actually have done your homework before you come to the show. You kind of know that I'm from Singapore, so you study, you read, or you are aware of the surrounding environment or the issue that Singapore is facing. So that when you network with people who are more successful than you, you are able to stay focused. And that shows that you have fully prepared. You have done your homework so that whatever you contribute is useful to the person. It's like rather than a person who come to a conversation with zero preparation and he just wing it, and you can tell straight away. So this is what I'm impressed upon this conversation we have right now. You are very, very exceptional. Because other guests of mine from America didn't know much or didn't show me how much they understand Singapore like you. So that is what I see a distinction you have made on this show as compared to other guests from America. I'm not saying that they are not good, but you are very serious in everything you do, and that shows in this interview. So that's what I can say. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So the last two things I would like to talk about is like, I can't help but just to find out a bit more about what is your interest and why do you actually put time into real estate property. Is like I told another guest in the early episode by the name of Lane. I know that Lane and you are very good friends, and I told Lane that while I wasn't passionate about real estate investing, like for me, Jack Wong, I started off knowing the need of creating passive income or to tap on financial markets. So I make a decision to become an options trader, not so much about the tangible product investing. I like the paper investing. So that is how I started. Like for you, have you ever considered like investing in the financial market, like the stock market, rather than going to real estate? Like what drives you to decide to make a big jump to this real estate property investing?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jack. For me, I like to be able to touch and feel my investments. So that's why real estate, it's a physical thing. Yeah. I live in a house. I go to work in a building, right? So the real estate won't really go anywhere. With real estate, I get 5 things that I can't find anywhere else. I get income. Yep. There's depreciation, equity, appreciation, and leverage. $10,000. If I invest $10,000 in the stock market, I'll get $10,000 worth of stock. If I invest $10,000 in the real estate market, I can potentially get $90,000 to $100,000 worth of real estate. That's the power of leverage. But I will say this: I like my ETFs. Don't get me wrong; it's a great diversification play. I love exchange traded funds. I love index funds. It's good for me to diversify and expect a solid returns on a yearly basis, and just make sure that I'm covering all of my bases.
That's right.
But it's not that I don't like investing in the financial markets or in equities. I just prefer investing in real estate. Yeah. I don't think I can be a day trader. I think that takes a lot of focus, and I'm not focused in that regard on equities. Options for me, I know options. I like options. But again, I mean, that takes time. And all the greats tell you one thing. All the great investors tell you one thing, right? Focus
right.
your energy. And then the moment that you have the opportunity to diversify, take advantage of different asset classes, and then of course take advantage of different industries and different markets, then feel free to do so. But my goal has always been keep it simple, understand my investments. If I don't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it. I don't understand Bitcoin, so I'm not going to invest in Bitcoin, right?
Okay. Yep.
But I understand the technology behind Bitcoin. I don't think we're ready for a full-scale investment into that. Bitcoin here is at 14,000, and then a couple weeks ago it dropped below 6. So, that was tough. But it's early for Bitcoin, and I'm not fully prepped on it. Just like options significantly better than I do, so I would most likely seek your counsel on that instead of doing it myself.
Well, like you said, we have actually made the decision. Like I decide to focus on that thing called options, and you make a decision to focus on real estate. So it's not like we are jumping around like what we call the shiny object syndrome. Like find any single thing that works, and we're just jumping around. In the end, it get us nowhere. So it's very important for us to stay focused on one thing and get good at that. And at a certain point in time, like you said nicely, then we can consider diversifying or add on another income stream. I believe Robert Kiyosaki said that multiple streams of income doesn't mean that you have to do a lot of things at the same time. It's you build one income stream first. When you become consistent, then you add on one more, and you add on one more, and you add on one more. So that is the concept of multiple stream of income is all about. But a lot of people actually do not get it.
That's correct.
They said, I have to get into real estate investing, equity market, and do this and do that. In the end, they can't stay focused. And you know what? They can't get the results they want. So I understand this is the problem so many people are facing, lack of focus. So I know that it's hitting the half-hour mark, so I just want to ask 2 more questions, then we will conclude this episode. There's a ritual in this show that I will always ask the guest to give me the number 1 favorite quote he or she has, and Abhi gave me this one. This one is from the famous Rockefeller quote, "If you want to succeed, you should strike out on new paths rather than travel the worn paths of accepted success." So why do you pick this quote, and how does it apply to your life and your business?
So great question, Jack. I mean, I think that it's very indicative of who I am and what I've done right now. You have to be willing to strike out. You have to be willing to fail. It's okay. You have to make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, if you don't fail, then you won't get back up. You have to be willing to do that and go through that process. Too many times there are parents that will say you have to get an A. You have to get an A. In order to get an A, you don't have you no mistakes, right? 0 mistakes. You have to get 100% all the time. But it's when you make the mistake that you actually learn. And then you're able to set down that one path and say, you know what, I got it. And I can confidently move forward and be successful. Which and success has its own different definition, right? There are a lot of people that equate success to only financial success, which isn't necessarily the case. You have success with health, your family, interpersonal relationships, intrapersonal relationships, religion, spirituality, your career, giving back, making impact. How many people do you impact on a daily basis? Or are you being selfish and only paying it? So you take all of these things and you combine them, and then you create the definition of what success really means for you, because everybody has their own different level of success. And that ultimately then will get to your deeper why, which then ultimately fulfills the impact that you want to have in the world, and then ultimately your destiny while you're visiting Earth. So that's why that quote for me is super powerful.
Thank you very much for that. So the last question is a very standard question. How are we able to check out what you do? Is there any website, I know you have a podcast show. Like, where can we find out more about what you do?
Great question. So I would go to abhigolhar.com. That's abhigolhar.com. You can find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I love answering questions. It doesn't have to be about real estate investing. It can be about business, startup, etc. So feel free to get in touch at abhigolhar.com. If you want to check out the real estate side of what I'm doing, go over to realestatedealtalk.com.
Okay. Thanks very much for your insight, experience, and of course, your fantastic journey of entrepreneurship. I'm sure that my listeners are truly appreciative with the sharing or your generosity of sharing your journey with us. I enjoy the conversation. So listeners, that concludes the other episodes of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. So again, next time I'm going to bring out another successful entrepreneur who is going to share with you his or her wisdoms, intelligence, and experiences to help you take your business to the next level. Until we next meet, Jack Wong here. I'm signing off and bye.
To continue cracking the entrepreneur code, subscribe for more episodes and download the Amazon bestseller, Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, 7 Tips to Build the Business You Always Wanted at crackingentrepreneurcode.com. Learn more about author and host Jack H.M. Wong and book your 30-minute discovery session to overcome any professional challenge at jackhmwong.com/apply.